Hello everyone, welcome back to my fifth discography ranking. Today we are going to be ranking the discography of Death, and are also going to add Control Denied's The Fragile Art of Existence, since it's only one album and I think it's a significant part of Chuck Schuldner's career, so I'm just going to add it in. So, I'll be ranking all the studio albums, you know which ones they are, and let's get right into it. Starting off with number 8 on this list, my least favorite, is their debut, Scream Bloody Gore from 1987. I really love the explosiveness of this record. I think that it certainly stands its ground as one of the sort of pioneering efforts in creating what would really become death metal, and I think it's a really solid record. But I do have some complaints. The production is the main thing. I appreciate the messiness of it, but I think that sometimes it gets just a little bit annoying, especially the solos. I don't like how the solos, when they kick in, they're so much louder than the rest of the mix, and it just sort of gets them annoying, not to mention the fact that I just don't think the solos are anything like super special. But the messiness of the production, I think I can appreciate with the style that it's going for. The vocals are very good. I think the vocals are not as good as what Chuck's vocals would eventually become, but I think they certainly match the style. And there's a lot of classic songs for me on this album. Zombie Ritual, Baptized in Blood, I love that song. Along with the closing song, I think is really good. The title track, Scream Bloody Gore. But there's a lot of just sort of filler on here, I think. Not, like, terrible, just kind of average. And I understand it's, like, one of the first death metal records, but that doesn't stop it from feeling like some of the riffs are just kind of a dime a dozen. And so I feel like this album, it's very fun to listen to. I think that it's not particularly great, especially compared to everything else that would come after that. So, yeah. Moving on to number 7, we have Spiritual Healing from 1990. I think that this album is pretty underrated. I think that it deserves more positive reviews than I think it gets. But I think I can understand the flaws that a lot of people have for it. I don't think the songwriting is any worse than on Leprosy. I don't think it's really a step down. I just think that some of the things that this album is subverted by are the production, which I think the production, especially on the drums, just sounds kind of watered down and sort of like drowned out compared to the production on Leprosy. It kind of loses a little bit of the harshness, but that's also kind of the point, because they were shifting into a more progressive style, and you see that in the lyrics a lot, I think, which, although I think some of the lyrics have, like, aged a little bit less well than others, I think they're really good commentary from someone who is really thinking about what was around their surroundings. I think that the riffs are just as good as on Leprosy. I really love the solos. I think they're really good. My main problem is that this album ends very poorly. I think Killing Spree is completely forgettable. It's just not good at all. But the rest of the songs are really good or awesome. Spiritual Healing, the title track, is a classic for me. It's so, like, it's so angry, and I love the energy that's coming from it, and I love the main riff. The main riff is awesome. So yeah, moving on to Control Denied's The Fragile Art of Existence at number 6. This album is a really great prog metal album. It's really all of the things that they did on Sound of Perseverance that they sort of, I think, shifted into, instead of like progressive death metal, I think they transitioned into more just straight up prog metal here. I think they did really well. I really love Tim Amar's vocals. They're so, when the harsh highs hit, they're so intense, and the really clean vocals are also very good. I really appreciated Steve DiGiorgio's bass playing. I'm glad that he came back for this album. I like that with the production, I like the tone that the lead guitars have, but the rhythm guitar is just sort of muddy, and I don't really like that. And the vocal effects are also a little bit off, the occasional vocal effects. But still, the songwriting is very good and maintains the styles of The Sound of Perseverance, and I love the solos. Some of my favorite songs are Breaking the Broken, and the Fragile Art of Existence, the title track. Those are my favorites from the album. Moving on to number 5, we have Leprosy, the second album by Death. And this is the album that they shifted into just straight up like, oh, well, into a sort of more real death metal style. On Stream Bloody Gore, they were sort of just still creating the ideas. They still had a lot of very much thrash influence. And on Leprosy, they still had a lot of thrash influence, but they created something much more towards the death metal style. This is where they really shifted into true old school death metal. And that is and where they created something that could really serve as a blueprint. And I think that this record holds up really well. I think the production isn't the best, but the harshness of it works. I really like I think the drumming compared to Scream Bloody Gore is much more precise, and I really like the double bass that Bill Andrews adds to the mix. My one complaint that I have about this album is I think that Rick Roz's solos are kind of just Kerry King worship and a little bit throwaway, but they're not terrible. And I think that most of the solos are much more memorable, especially Chuck's solos. The solo in Left to Die is absolutely fantastic, and all the filler was fleshed out, and all of the songs have their own meaning, have their own purpose on the album. Even a song that I don't quite like as much, Primitive Ways, I still think is very good and very fun to listen to. But songs like Left to Die, Pull the Plug, Open Casket, and Choke on It are my favorites on this album. They're so good. They're death metal classics. They're not perfect, but they're awesome to me. Moving on to number 4, we have Individual Thought Patterns from 1993. This record is so intense, dude. This record is insane. This takes the progressive ideas that they started to incorporate on Human in 1991 and takes it even further and experiments with new ideas, for example, which I really enjoy. For instance, I really like that Chuck turns up the mids on the solos. I think that really worked with the style. And this is the first album with Gene Hoglan, which Gene Hoglan is personally my favorite drummer that was in Death's lineup. I think that he's so good and really adds to the technicality that they were going for. I also really like Steve DiGiorgio's fretless bass. I think it really shines through compared to Human. I think that the production on the bass is a lot better. It's a lot more there, and it's a lot more prevalent. My one complaint with the production is that on a couple of songs, I think that the vocals become a little bit drowned out. But other than that, the production's awesome. I really love the production. The songwriting is gritty, it's intense, it's angry, it's passionate, and it's just really fun. It's really fun and intense to listen to. And this is definitely, in my opinion, a more underrated album. I think that this album gets a little bit less praise. I think some people don't like it as much, but me personally, I think it's really awesome. Moving on to Human in 1996. This album is just from spiritual healing to go from spiritual healing to this is just, it was crazy to listen to. When I first listened to this record, I was like amazed at how technical it was. I mean, as a drummer, I was just so impressed with Sean Reinhardt's drumming. I was completely blown away. I didn't even I honestly didn't even know that when I first listened to it that anyone could play in the way that he did. And rest in peace to him. He's what an amazing drummer. And this is this beginning of shifting into more progressive metal and more progressive death metal, more like, really stuck the landing for me. I think this is the first record that they made that was really like, okay, this is where it got, like, this is where death became the greatest of all time. And I think that it's amazing. My favorite songs in this album are Flattening of Emotions. The mood of that song, it perfectly fits the title. It feels like you're just getting flattened from moment one. When that double bass hits in and that main riff, it is crushing to listen to. And my favorite song on this album is Lack of Comprehension. And I really love all the other songs. I think all the other songs are amazing as well. So, yeah. Now at number 2, we have The Sound of Perseverance from 1998. I wasn't sure whether either this or Symbolic would be my favorite, but The Sound of Perseverance, in my opinion, was a really great way to end Death's career. I think that even though I know Chuck wanted to end it with Symbolic, I think that Sound of Perseverance still stuck the landing for me almost perfectly. The production on this album is fantastic. Chuck's vocals are the best I think they ever were. The drumming it's crazy. The drumming is crazy. It's not my favorite drumming that has ever come from Death, but I think that it really fits with the technicality and progressiveness of the record, and I think that Richard Christie definitely did something special on this record. I love the riff work and the songwriting. In my opinion, it's just barely not as good. There's not much of a difference in terms of quality, in my opinion, between Symbolic and The Sound of Perseverance. In my opinion, The Sound of Perseverance is just slightly lower on the bar. Like, there's like one or two songs that are not quite as good, and everything else is perfect. I love Scavenger of Human Sorrow as an opening song. I think it's perfect. And then Spirit Crusher is obviously amazing. Flesh and the Power It Holds is really beautiful. Voice of the Soul is gorgeous. It is one of the best instrumentals I've ever heard in my life. And then my personal favorite song on this album is actually Moment of Clarity, which might be an odd pick, but just for the opening riff, all of the riffs on this song are amazing. And then the guitar solo is so beautiful. It's not his most technical, obviously, but it has so much emotion to it, and I think it's a perfect way to be one of the last songs on the album. And then the Painkiller cover is absolutely amazing. I love the Painkiller cover. Even as a closer, I think it actually works really well. So yeah, I can't really give this album much more praise. I think that it is really deserving of all the praise that it gets. So yeah, let's just move on to number 1, which is Symbolic from 1995. This album is so genuinely amazing. It's the closest that I've ever come to rating an album as perfect. I gave it a 99 out of 100, and there's good reason for it. There's only 2 songs on this album that I don't think are perfect, and it's Crystal Mountain. Shoot me. Don't. I know. That may seem like a ridiculous take, but I don't think Crystal Mountain is perfect. I think it's awesome. I just don't think it's perfect. And then Misanthrope, which I think that's a bit more reasonable. But the rest of the album is just perfect. It is so amazing. From second one, with the opener, the title track, it raises the bar to perfect and just stays there nearly the whole time. The production is awesome. I prefer it over Sound of Perseverance. I think it's the best production they did. I really love the solos on this album. I really love the solos. along with the riff work and the songwriting. I think the lyrics are some of the most interesting and most well-rounded that Chuck ever did. I think that the drumming is so good. It is perfect. The drumming is actually perfect on this album. And as I said, I love Gene Hoglan is my favorite drummer that was in Death. And the just how everything fits together sonically as well is just, it's like I said, it's a damn near perfect album. And yeah, I honestly don't think I can really say any more. That's just honestly it. So yeah, that was my ranking of Death's discography. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you for another video soon, hopefully. See ya.